Colton Krolak is our KTAR news reporter, and he's got his piece today and tomorrow, Turbulent Times. Colton, welcome back to the show. Talking to this air traffic controller.
Thank you guys for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on. What's the biggest concern maybe that you had after chatting with him? What's his biggest concern keeping flights safe above Arizona?
Yeah, well, I first wanted to talk about his motivation for coming on. Obviously, he spoke on condition of anonymity as something that he was really sticking his neck out, coming in and talking to us while he's still an active air traffic controller. But he heard some of the things going on in the media, heard some of the narratives surrounding air traffic controllers, and felt like he wanted to educate people on what it is they do. And I think one of the biggest takeaways, the thing that stuck out with me the most, is that one, he thinks it's extremely safe, and I think some of us are questioning that right now as we hear all this stuff in the news, but he does think it's really safe. But with that, he says that mistakes happen every single day, and he's caught hundreds of mistakes, but it's because of the people that are in the industry. It's the pilots, it's the air traffic controllers, it's the redundancies in place that allow them to catch all of those mistakes. And even though there are, plenty of mistakes that do happen because everybody's human, they're still able to catch them. So I thought that was really interesting that he was just maintaining how safe it was. The other thing is, he said that the valley is a beehive. That's how he described it, of military aircraft or student pilots. There's 30,000, I believe, certified pilots with the FAA in Arizona, and 40% of those are student pilots. And that's something that air traffic controllers have to contend with as well as these new pilots. So it's a little scary to think about.
KTAR's Colton Krolak joining us right now, doing an investigative piece called Turbulent Times. And again, like you touched on, I think people concerned about flying, and I can understand that to a certain level. You mentioned something I wanted to follow up on. Basically, is what you got from him that mistakes are going to happen. Humans are going to make mistakes, but there's enough systems in place for them to catch them. Is that supposed to make me feel better?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what he was trying to say, is that there are enough systems in place, and obviously we know about the technological component, the fail-safes with technology, and that's the last resort. But he says he catches mistakes all the time, or he'll assign a wrong altitude and somebody will overhear that and correct him, or a pilot will question something because they're all paying attention. So there is a lot of redundancies in place. I know that sounds scary, but he maintains that it is extremely safe. The other thing, the staffing, I think, is another big thing that we got into when I was talking with him. I know certain places around the country are struggling with staffing. He said that where he works, there isn't that struggle. It is technically staffed, but the problem is with PTO and air traffic controllers calling out, because obviously there's a bunch of regulations about if you have a certain medication, you can't work for a certain amount of hours and things like that. So people are calling off. So even though they're technically staffed with all that PTO, they're still having to work long hours. They're still having to work overtime.
Hey, Colin, did you talk to him about the stress and the difficulty of the job? Because that's what I hear that air traffic controllers deal with. There are long hours, and obviously you've got thousands of people's lives, I mean, in the air.
Yeah.
And so did he talk about the stress of it?
Yeah, he did. And we talked at length about that. One, I don't think that is lost on him. He mentioned multiple times about how seriously they take the job after some of the crashes, especially the one in DC. He said he was operating at like 130%, like just eyes were glued to what he was doing because just like you guys said, he's carrying the stress with him. So I do know that does play a factor, but he also said the more dangerous times is when there's not that stress, when there's boredom or there's nothing happening, because then you catch yourself slipping. You're not paying attention as hard as you should be because you let your guard down.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of scary. If you think about it, that almost is even scarier. You're not ready.
You want to be busy.
Yeah, busy. It keeps you engaged.
Yeah.
Colton, again, your series is called Turbulent Times. Can you talk to us? I know you also spoke to a flight instructor down at Marana, where we had a fatal accident just last month. What did you learn?
Yeah, so he wasn't the instructor of those pilots who were involved in the crash, but obviously he was an instructor at the airport where this crash happened near Tucson. And he was telling me that he's spoken with some students who have some reservations now about flying, or at least have voiced, some concerns about flying, or their family members have voiced concerns. But he said that, there's tons of training, obviously, that goes into this, that everybody's looking out for each other. Other pilots, he mentioned a story about how there was a student pilot who didn't know what to do when plans of which runway she was supposed to go to got changed. She was soloing. It was one of her first time soloing, and different pilots jumped on the radio and helped guide her down. And so he also stresses that it is very safe, but people have to look out for each other, and you always have to be on your game.
Yeah.
Part 2 airs tomorrow, Arizona's Morning News, right?
Yep, we're going to be talking really about the policy decisions. We're going to be talking to Greg Stanton, who's one of the most influential people in air travel. He's on the House Aviation Subcommittee. And then also got to go out to Sky Harbor, talk to some travelers, see how they feel about flying has changed recently.
All right. Colton Krolak, KTAR reporter, Turbulent Times. We'll be looking forward to that tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good stuff.
Thank you, guys.
Outstanding. All right.
I wonder if the incidents that have taken place this whole year actually will end up making us safer.
Yeah,
We're
because
more
it's
aware of it.
Yeah. Air traffic controllers, pilots, everybody's more aware. You would hope.
Yeah.
You would hope.
Right. And that they've learned something from what's taken place over the last few months.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gaydos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.